Hey, all you literary legends and luminaries. I'm Julie, and welcome to another episode of Booksmart. Today's book revisits an author I've reviewed before on Booksmart. It's Casey Sherman's Blood in the Water, The Untold Story of a Family Tragedy. If you've watched Booksmart before, last year I read Casey Sherman's Helltown, which was good enough for me to keep. I give over 90% of my books to my local used bookstores, so I keep maybe one or two books a year, if that. But Helltown blended true crime with the narrative style of a fictional book. It was stupendous. So when I was at Barnes & Noble and saw Blood in the Water, I bought it. This is one of those books that shows you the power of a good book and a fabulous author. I wouldn't have bought Blood in the Water if it were written by somebody else. But since I loved Helltown, I had to buy his new book. Blood in the Water was good, but not as good as Helltown. So here's the premise of Blood in the Water, which was a story I knew nothing about. Nathan Carmen's grandfather and mother both die under mysterious circumstances. His grandfather is shot to death and his mother disappears at sea. Nathan was one of the last ones to see his grandfather alive. Nathan is the one who takes his mom fishing and then the boat sinks. Nathan is rescued after 7 days, according to him, and his mother is never found. Nathan's grandfather is filthy rich, by the way. Charges aren't filed against Nathan for years, but civil suits and insurance claims reveal telling information, but not enough to provide a conclusive resolution to the story. And then there's a slight twist at the end, which I'm not sure I should reveal, so I'll just let you find that out on your own. But I'm going to read the author's note to you, which is at the end of the story, because this is really what is at hand in the story that Sherman is telling us. And he says this: was Nathan Carmen a villain or a victim? It is a question that I wrestled with each day while researching and writing this book. Taking an unbiased approach to the story, I focused on all the evidence I had compiled: court documents, U.S. Coast Guard reports, lengthy interviews with key players, and hundreds of stories that had been written about Nathan Carmen, his mother Linda Carmen, and his grandfather John Chocolos. My goal was to present the story as accurately as possible and then let the reader decide whether Nathan was responsible for the brutal murder of his beloved grandfather and the suspected drowning of his mother. Some days, I think he's the diabolical mastermind that has been depicted by members of his own family and certain members of the media. On other days, I say to myself, there's no way that he could have possibly committed 2 murders and got away with them for as long as he did. So, Sherman starts this story with Nathan's rescue at sea. Then the story goes back in time, sets the stage for his grandfather, John Chocolos, and then establishes his mother, Linda Carmen. Sherman's writing style is much more journalistic in this book than Helltown. It's the bang, bang, bang type writing. First this happens, and whatnot. This is one of the reasons I don't read true crime books back to back. I enjoy the Truman Capote style of true crime as opposed to the black and white reporting of court documents and police interviews. And Sherman even includes texts and online comments, which I don't enjoy reading in a book. Even Sherman's use of the names of people, one he calls the caretaker, and flipping back and forth with their names seemed too impersonal for my taste. His writing was captivating. I kept wanting to read to find out what happened next. So Sherman knows how to hold his reader's attention and knows how to pace a story. I just preferred his Helltown narrative choices. As Blood in the Water progresses, we learn of some family dysfunction and some family secrets. My complaint with this aspect of the story is that we don't always get the full story. I know part of that is because Sherman himself never finds clear answers, but other times it feels like the details are just forgotten. So let me read you this regarding Linda, who is Nathan's mom. But instead of attacking her father physically or verbally, she took out her frustrations on her son. On September 26, 2013, Linda secretly rewrote her will, stating, "Nathan Carmen is my only child. I have intentionally omitted Nathan and all of his descendants as beneficiaries under my revocable trust." After cutting Nathan out of her will, Linda pledged her $5.7 million share of her father's estimated $43 million inheritance to her sisters Elaine, Charlene, and Valerie, and left her horse, Sophie Bell, to a close friend. Linda's millions were tied up in what was known as a dynasty trust that was controlled by Valerie's husband, Lawrence Santilli, the millionaire CEO of Athena Healthcare Systems, which operated close to 50 assisted living centers in Connecticut. Linda gave no reason as to why she was omitting her son from her will. She did not share information with any of her family members, including Nathan, and she hoped that he would not find out, as it would create an even greater divide with her son. It was a secret that Linda had promised herself she would take to her grave. So money obviously plays a huge role in the story, but as the story reaches its climax, it's never fully clear if Nathan himself finds out that he was written out of her will, and if it was, it's this blip in the book, and there's no development of Nathan's reaction. There were a couple of times in the book where I felt this way, like, wait, what about this? There's a family member that flippantly said that someone should murder John Chocolos, but were never given the name of the person who said it. I'm not sure why. Was that left out on purpose, or did the person who was told it didn't reveal their source? I don't know. It was little stuff like that throughout the book that Sherman seemed a bit vague about, and I wasn't sure where the vagueness came from. I needed more clarity and more space to develop some of these issues. Sherman developed somewhat, not maybe as much as he could have, regarding the fact that Nathan is on the autism spectrum. The Sandy Hook shooter was Adam Lanza, who was also on the autism spectrum, and that happened before Nathan's mom disappeared. If you remember anything about that tragedy, there was a lot of speculation regarding Lanza's autism diagnosis and how that may or may not have played a part in the mass shooting. All of this Sherman brings up as he establishes Nathan's behavioral patterns that are somewhat typical of someone on the spectrum. My son is on the autism spectrum, so I'm familiar with the assumptions about autism and what are perceived to be oddities or quirks. But I'll pipe up here and say that when my son was put on the spectrum almost 20 years ago, educators in particular referred to it as this umbrella of autism, that it's not one size fits all. Yet, interestingly enough, everyone treated my son as though he had the stereotypical telltale signs of autism. So frustrating. For instance, lots of times I hear about how those on the spectrum lack empathy. That's not true at all. Many people with autism show empathy. Sherman develops aspects of this as Nathan's behavior is critiqued by the media and investigators. But there isn't enough, in my opinion. Later on in the investigation, some experts believe Nathan also suffered from schizophrenia, but there isn't enough development of that issue either. The story moved fast enough already that I think it wouldn't have been detrimental to the pacing to develop some of these issues more thoroughly. I'm okay that the crimes remained unsolved. I think in my older age, I've accepted that many things in life aren't resolved and never have clear answers. In my younger days, an unresolved ending might have aggravated me quite a bit though, so prepare yourself. Don't expect answers by the end of the book. What I wish there would have been a bit more though are the theories as to how the crimes could have happened. I know theories aren't fact, but theories use the information in front of you to formulate a possible sequence of events. I wanted to know the timeline of the sinking boat more. Everyone agreed that there's no way Nathan was in a life raft for 7 days. He appeared perfectly fine when he was rescued. The drift patterns in the Coast Guard never saw any inkling of any debris. So where was Nathan all that time? And where was his boat? And also, obviously, his mother. But Sherman doesn't write about any theories, using only what experts testified to during the trial. Since Helltown is becoming a series, I thought about how Blood in the Water could be a series too. Not all limited series, fictional or real, always explain everything in the end. Sometimes we're left to figure it out for ourselves what happened. Sometimes that's more fun than being told the answers. Like, remember Richard Marx's Hazard Song or Bobby Gentry's Ode to Billy Joe? We aren't given answers. The intrigue with the family story is fascinating, as well as the family riches and conflict and other bizarre tidbits. Blood in the Water could easily be a limited series too, either true or fictional, as it is incredibly interesting. And Sherman's fast-paced writing doesn't get boring, even when it's dealing with insurance claims and whatnot. Blood in the Water is worth the read, as long as you're okay finishing the book without solving the crime. This is one of those stories where you get to decide who done it. Thanks for watching. As always, my goal at Booksmart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.